The dirty bulk is dead. Going bear mode is dead. The days of eating anything in sight trying to force feed muscle growth are over. Assuming your goal is to maximize your physique naturally without having to maximize your body fat at the same time. So what is the best way to build serious muscle over the next 6 to 12 months? Well, in this video, I'm breaking down the fundamental differences between dirty bulking and lean bulking, and why only one of those will leave you spinning your wheels and why the other is by far the fastest route to a lean, impressive physique. So by the end, you'll understand exactly how to build muscle efficiently without unnecessary fat gain, and then without wasting the months afterwards to cut it all off. I'm also going to explain how doing the lean bulk properly can transform your physique more than anything else you do, will set you up to save years of trial and error down the line in the meantime. Alright, let's start by defining what a dirty bulk actually is and why so many people fall into this trap. In theory, bulking just means eating in a calorie surplus to support muscle growth, but dirty bulking takes it to the extreme. There is only so much muscle growth your body can synthesize in a single month, and pushing more food beyond what's needed to maximize that growth will not make it go faster. The dirty bulk is about packing in as many calories as you can, well over 10% of a surplus, oftentimes over 20%, way above that in some cases, without paying much attention to food quality, since that would actually be counterintuitive to the purpose of these massive surpluses. Fast food, tons of carbs, processed snacks, anything that hits your calorie goals is fair game as long as you hit your protein. Now, this approach sounds appealing at first. I'll admit, after years of being stagnant when I first started lifting, I stumbled across the dirty bulk for the first time, and it was so easy to understand for me. Just double every meal that I currently eat, and then eat even more than that. Simple. And after doing this and gaining a serious 30 pounds in a pretty short time frame for my first bulk, people didn't recognize me because I was so much bigger. I was now sold on the dirty bulk. The thing is, it was all fun and games until it was time to cut. Because of the trash meal composition and strength losses happening fast, hunger flying up, etc., the cut was tragic, where I shed about 15 of the 30 pounds that I gained. And I still didn't look all that impressive. So what did I do? Well, I ran it again, and I took it even further. Eventually, it became clear that this was not the best way to do things. So why is dirty bulking not the best method? Well, we have to get clear on the fact that the fastest rate of muscle growth does require a calorie surplus, yes, but a surplus so much more conservative than we often think. Muscle growth can only happen at such a rate, like I mentioned before, that your body allows, and this assumes proper training and recovery. Now, if we go off the general estimation of about 700 calories in a pound of muscle, and you happen to put on 4 pounds of muscle in a month, which is a pipe dream for anybody other than a beginner, let's say, but even still, 4 pounds of pure muscle in a month would mean a surplus of roughly 2,800 total calories for the entire month, which is slightly under 100 calories per day on average across a 30-day span. So when you're eating thousands of calories over your maintenance, your body doesn't have daily. Your body doesn't have the ability to turn all that excess into muscle. You're just gonna gain 4 pounds of fat on top of the 4 pounds of muscle, even if you gain that to begin with, that is. And here's the even harsher reality. The more fat you put on, the more it will trick you into thinking you're building more muscle. You look bigger, your clothes fit tighter, but in reality, you're not making as crazy of gains as the scale or your clothes would have you think. Again, I've been there myself. I remember dirty bulking, looking in the mirror and thinking that I was making insane muscle gains, and it was appealing to me as somebody who was always skinny. You know, it felt good to fill out the large and extra large clothes, but each bulk revealing barely any additional muscle for all of the pain, torture, and calories I was shoveling down. And this is the case because you put on less muscle as you get closer to your genetic limit. Over time, this approach can leave you spinning your wheels because as you gain 40 pounds just to have put on 10 pounds of muscle, it's not only not worth it, but it just so happens to be inferior due to things like higher insulin resistance. So unfortunately, it's a harsh lesson most people end up learning the hard way. So let's make sure you aren't most people, or at least that you're not like I was when I was earlier on in my lifting journey. So let's explore the alternative to dirty bulking, which is lean bulking. And here's the thing, based on what we know now from all the cumulative data, a conservative calorie surplus of just 5 to 10% above your maintenance is actually more than enough to maximize muscle growth while keeping fat gain to a minimum. We're not just talking about a slight tweak to avoid extra fat, we're talking about a method that makes every calorie count. Think of it this way, if your body can only build a pound of muscle in a month, then that theoretically only requires about a 23 calorie surplus daily spread across 30 days. That's tiny, which means you don't actually even need to be in a constant surplus. In fact, research even shows that advanced lifters, those who often struggle to make gains at all, can still build muscle right around maintenance calories. So you can actually drop down to maintenance periodically during your bulk and still support muscle growth. This keeps your gains leaner and more efficient without piling on that unnecessary fat in the process. With lean bulking, it's all about precision. You're fueling muscle growth with just enough calories to see progress, but you're not overdoing it. And by focusing on more nutrient-dense foods, high-quality foods, you're supporting your training, recovery, and overall health along the way. Unlike dirty bulking, lean bulking doesn't end in a long, grueling, drawn-out cut that has to peel back infinite layers of fat just to see what muscle you've actually built, usually to be disappointed to find that it wasn't what you thought. And not to mention, you're actually losing a lot of lean mass along that process as well. Now, on that note, keeping your calorie surplus conservative does something else. It forces you to be much more selective with your food choices. And this is why, contrary to popular belief, I believe bulking properly actually requires as much, if not more, discipline than cutting. So while most people are treating bulks as an excuse to slack off and overeat on anything in sight, a lean bulk demands that your meal composition, timing, and even eating window are as dialed in as possible. With just a small surplus, you are aiming to gain at a controlled rate, typically 0.25 to 0.75 pounds a week, sometimes even less depending on your experience level and goals. Let's walk through what's slowly becoming my most successful lean bulk of all time, which is my current one. I started this bulk back in September 2023 at around 196 pounds. Fast forward to the beginning of November 2024, and I'm currently averaging about 214 pounds, which is an 18-pound increase across 14 months, which breaks down to about 1.3 pounds per month or about 0.3 pounds per week, which is a steady, controlled pace that's allowed me to gain muscle while staying quite lean. Throughout this time, my strength has consistently gone up, more on training shortly, and I've strategically taken time to fall back to maintenance for extended periods to keep my gains clean and sustainable. The best part, at 214 pounds, I'm still relatively lean with visible definition, nearly striated quads, and decent abs. But beyond just physique, I've developed the healthiest eating behaviors I've ever had. I have zero tendencies to binge no matter what's around me, and a solid 10 out of 10 on satiety, performance, and overall well-being. High quality foods are fueling me every single day, and I feel incredible. This lean bulk hasn't just kept me leaner while gaining, it's completely shifted my relationship with food and training. I'm leaner, stronger, and in control of every step of my progress. Just so we're clear, here's a step-by-step blueprint that focuses on controlled, sustainable muscle growth without becoming a sloppy fat ass. Get your maintenance calories and bump calories up by 5 to 10% over that. If your maintenance is 3,000, you're going to go up to between 3,150 and 3,300 calories. Next is dial in your macros. For lean bulking, you want balanced macros. Protein is going to be somewhere around 1 gram per pound of your ideal future body weight, which is a body weight that you're going to be at ideally in the future naturally at around 10% body fat as a man or 20% as a woman. Personally, I'm hitting around 250 grams of protein daily, sometimes even above that. And if you're still wondering why I eat higher protein amounts, especially in a bulk, it's been covered many times, and the data does back up the fact that more protein above 0.8 grams per pound of body weight is not only not bad, it does come with its own string of benefits as well. Fat should probably just stay at somewhere around at 25%, and carbs will fill in the rest of your calories. You don't need ridiculously high amounts of them, back like when I was eating 800 grams of carbs, for instance. This is overkill. Next, make sure to emphasize quality. This is where lean bulking differs from that dirty bulk, primarily focusing on nutrient-dense whole foods for as close to 100% of your intake as you can. Lean proteins like chicken, turkey, fish, complex carbs like rice, oats, and sweet potatoes, healthy fats like avocados and olive oils. Avoid emptier calories that could simply trigger overeating and won't maximize health, which, if your best physique is your goal, then maximum health should come first. Track your body weight and adjust as needed. While we're aiming for an average gain across the span of the bulk of 0.25 and 0.75 pounds per week, keep in mind that sometimes, if you're gaining too quickly, pull back a little bit if needed. And also keep in mind that in order to achieve slow averages like this, like I did, for instance, 0.3 pounds per week, you can't expect or even shoot for the scale to bump up consistently week after week. Some weeks will be stagnant, maybe even a few weeks in a row, and then some weeks you can push up. Now, the key with lean bulking is how lean should you actually stay here. Obviously, people do make a mistake sometimes in trying to stay too lean when bulking, which actually prevents them from putting on the mass that they otherwise could. So putting on some fat is part of this process for sure. Now, how much fat is going to be somewhat subjective, but my recommendation based on my experience would be, if you're a guy, not going above 18% body fat, sometimes even as high as 15-16% is probably where you should set your stop loss. As a woman, you can add 10% body fat to that. So if you're going to 20% or above, I do believe that that's complete overkill and otherwise dirty bulk territory. However, if you're staying below 12% as a man, you might be setting yourself back as far as how much muscle you can grow maximally because your hormones just aren't at a peak level at those lower levels of body fat. It's going to be harder to sustain. You can't focus on performance as much. Recovery and sleep may not be as good, or stress management, etc. So keeping your lean bulk for the most part, somewhere between 12% and say 18% on the absolute upper limit as a man, just add 10% to both those numbers as a woman, should probably be your best bet to make sure you're staying lean. Once you go above that, if you go too fast and you do end up going above that too quickly, a mini cut is something that you can look to do. But if you really fucked up that bad to where you flew over these body fat percentage numbers, or worse, you started this bulk, maybe you did a combination of both, but you started the bulk where you weren't already lean to begin with. If you start your bulk at 15% body fat, I don't recommend that. I do believe that you should keep cutting until you get to that 8 to 12% range, and then lean bulk from that 12% up to about that 18% at an absolute maximum. Now, in order to make the most of your calorie surplus, the entire emphasis of your fitness process needs to be locking in on your performance in the gym. Your training is going to be #1 priority during this time. Here's how to make the most of it while you're on this lean bulk and this well-fed state. #1 is focusing on progressive overload. Of course, dirty bulking often makes people feel strong because they're eating so much food, and the more mass you put on, typically you'll get a little bit stronger just by weighing more. But lean bulking requires you to be a lot more calculated and smarter with your training. So prioritize progressive overload in the gym, adding weight reps or sets each week. This is what stimulates growth, working the right rep ranges and getting close to failure on each set. Compound movements like squats, deadlifts, pressing, and pulling variations are all your best friends. They maximize motor unit recruitment without needing to hit failure or go too high on the rep ranges across multiple muscle groups. But don't forget about isolation work as well. You can probably tolerate slightly higher volumes when you're in a surplus. Exercises like bicep curls, leg extensions help develop weak points that you may need to focus on during this time, so make sure you use those accordingly. Keep cardio moderate. That's right, do not be skipping your cardio on a bulk. In fact, moderate cardio can improve recovery and maintain cardiovascular health, which is important, not only for the health component I mentioned prior, but for better performance in the gym, which is now your #1 priority, remember? Aim for a minimum of 4 cardio sessions per week. And yes, they can be lower intensity, lower duration. I have a full video covering cardio that you can check out on the channel for more insights there. And don't forget to track your lifts. Lean bulking requires you to be as disciplined with your workouts as you are with your diet. Okay, so track your lifts, monitor progress, and adjust as you go. If you're consistently progressing in the gym, you're on the right track for muscle growth. If you want to stop second guessing your training and also get the best workout tracker on the market that comes coupled with coaching support from me on training, nutrition, cardio, and more, then jump into my Modern Physique Accelerator program down below. Now, even with the right approach, there are common mistakes that can seriously derail your lean bulk. Here's what you want to avoid. #1 is poor meal composition and timing. So it's easy to think that just hitting your calories and macros is enough, but if you're not consistent with your meal structure, you're missing out on better recovery and muscle retention. Sticking to 3 to 4 balanced meals a day with even protein feedings and keeping it consistent. That stability is what counts the most for real progress as far as performance in the gym goes. Next mistake is inconsistent tracking. Tracking isn't just about food, it's about the whole picture. Make sure you're consistently tracking your meals, yes, but also progress photos and measurements at regular cadences. These data points are critical for making the right adjustments and ensuring you're moving in the right direction. And of course, that does include daily body weight to measure weekly trends. The other mistake I've already mentioned, skipping cardio. Lean bulking doesn't mean that you're ditching cardio, no bulking does. Typically, dirty bulks do include that part because again, it's a way to be lazy. But regular cardio helps with overall health, improves recovery, keeps your surplus from overspilling into unwanted fat gain. A couple of sessions of cardio a week minimum can go a really long way to keep you on track here. And the next mistake is cranking up the volume too fast. It's tempting to increase training volume quickly when you're in a surplus, especially again, a dirty one, thinking that you're invincible or thinking you're bulletproof with your recovery. But don't overdo it. Be smart about when and how you increase the volume and stick to steady, calculated adjustments to avoid burnout and to continue maximizing gains along the way and avoid injury. So here's the bottom line. Dirty bulking might make you feel like you're making massive gains, but it's mostly a shortcut to packing on unnecessary fat. Sure, if you do it in the first year, you might think that it is the key to the kingdom, but it really isn't. Take it from somebody who made that mistake. Maybe one solid dirty bulk will help you at least build a decent foundation, but I would still argue you otherwise could have built that foundation doing it the proper way And again, avoiding years of trial and error and having to mess up your cut next, which you're gonna have to cut way more than you initially thought, and so on and so on. You're gonna end up spending months in a grueling cut just to see what muscle you've actually built underneath it all eventually. Lean bulking, on the other hand, is all about quality over quantity. You're building real solid muscle without the fluff. Staying lean year-round is ideal. You don't want to take this higher than, as a man, 15 to 18% body fat. There's no need to go anywhere beyond that. As a woman, add 10% body fat to that. This way you can put your focus where it should be, on progress, not damage control. So if you're ready to ditch the outdated dirty bulk and start seeing real sustainable gains, commit to the lean bulk approach we've covered today. And for those of you who do, I'll be seeing you at the top.